I'm Vincent from the Chainer team. Today I'll be talking about how to be efficient editing your source code. And with efficient, I mean doing more with less effort. So first of all, I'd like you to take a look at this comic from XKCD because it sort of illustrates how editing has changed over the course of time. And to the upper left, you have this guy editing with Nano, which is in this context considered a very modern editor. And then this programmer walks up to him from behind and says, real programmers use Emacs, right? And then he's followed by another one says, no, real programmers use Vim, and so on. Until this last guy comes up and says, no, real programmers use butterflies, actually. So, as chocho in Japanese. So what he means that you just open your hand with your butterfly and let it flap, and this will cause a rippling effect that ultimately causes a cosmic ray to hit your hard drive and shift your bit. And that should be how the hardcore programmer works. And the last square is that, well, there's a command in Emacs that does this. So, well, knowing these low-level details is very important. We don't want to be fiddling with the rays, cosmic rays here at PFN. And we want to work here at the upper left and be more efficient. Because we spend a lot of time every day, of course, developing applications and running experiments and processing data sets and whatnot. But all of these tasks have in common is that you need to be editing and writing source code and to tell the computer what to do. And this is the best we can do today, fortunately, because it comes with some concerns. Because although this is not really cosmic rays again, we're still working on a character basis input, which is still quite primitive. And we're repeating a lot of work all the time, like pressing the same keys over and over every day. And naturally, because of this, these tasks are very error-prone. And if you're coding in a programming language, you need to stick to the syntax and the grammars, and as humans, we do typos all the time. So although this is a concern, unfortunately, we have the source code editors at disposals. And why we're using these is quite obvious if we look at the definition on Wikipedia. The Wikipedia says that source code editors are the most fundamental programming tools for the programmer, and they should speed up the input of source code. And other editors could be used as source code editors, but if they don't enhance, automate, or ease the editing of code, then they're by definition not source code editors. So a natural response to reading this is just, well, I just pick a random editor from this list, and my concerns are gone. And that's partially true, but not completely, because the efficiency doesn't really come only from the editor, but from you using the editor correctly as it was intended to be used. And the editor just gives you the tools for this. So what you need to do is you just need to learn how to use the editor correctly, just like, let's say, driving a car. You have the car, but you need to know how to change the gear and press the gas to get to your destination. So these are 3 basic steps proposed by Bram, who is the author of Vim, one of these source code editors. And he says that first you need to detect your inefficiency. You need to pinpoint what you can do better, and then simply make it better, and you do it quicker. You find a way to do it quicker. And again, you don't learn this during the course of one day, but you need to make this a habit and continuously improve your workflow. So I think many of you actually recognize these steps as basic program optimization. This is very general, but it helps to explain the following topics I'm going to discuss. So first of all, how do you detect when you're inefficient? So every now and then, ideally you do this all the time, running in a separate thread in your head if you can, but this is quite difficult in practice. So you need to think when you edit or move around the file or move between files. I have done that more efficiently with less effort. And to give some concrete examples of these inefficiencies, I just listed a couple of ones on top of my head. And first ones are physical inefficiencies, such as having difficulties to touch type or maybe reaching for keys that are very inconveniently placed, like the arrow keys, for example. And the second one is navigating within a file, of course, which you can often do better than what you currently are. And slightly more difficult is maybe navigating across files, finding definitions of functions. And again, we do misspellings and write typos all the time. And often there are various tasks that include a lot of repetitions that can be automated and should be. So once you manage to find one of these inefficiencies, then you find a quick way to do it smarter. So first of all, you just read the documentation of how the editor works, right? Because that is your manual. And I think often the solution is already there. Of course, this depends on the tool you're using, but if it doesn't, then you should be able to customize it to your needs. And if you can't, if you realize that you have a really hard time doing that, then you could consider changing your editor. And again, you need to learn this sort of in your muscle memory, so you need to, if you have a previous habit of doing it in a particular way, you need to get rid of it, and that could be difficult. And one concrete way to do that is to disable the configurations that you previously relied on to completely disable them. So I thought it's easier to explain with some examples. So I'm going to use Vim for this because that's the editor I'm using. And just a really quick overview of Vim is that it's a source code editor with different modes, and you change between these modes. And the characteristics of Vim is that the same keys behave differently in different modes. So, so first, one of these inefficiencies that I listed before, navigating within a file. So Vim allows you to move around instead of using the arrow keys, H, J, K, and L. So they already addressed one of these physical inefficiencies that you need to move your hand to the arrows. And you can also find words and jump between words. And one tip that I want to give is this relative number, which I can show. And also for horizontal navigation, that is for vertical. For horizontal, I usually remap the jump to beginning of line and end of line to capital H and L, as in left and right for lowercase. Can you hear me? So this is the MNIST example from the chain repository. And let's see, you have H and L to jump back and forth between the lines. But the tip I want to give is this set relative. I hope you can see it. And then you see the line numbers to the left becoming relative. So if you're on this line, I want to jump to, let's say, you want to jump from here to the definition of NLP. You press 12 and up. And you can jump down to the definition of main really easily like this. So this is a concrete tip that I like to give. And navigating across files is slightly more complicated. And usually in Vim you use something called tags, which is a list of definitions basically in your source code. And using these tags, you can jump between files and back and forth. So you use a program called C tags to automatically generate these tags files. It generates a file like this with all your definitions in your current working directory. And what you can do is you can, for example, search for definition of, say, the Adam optimizer and jump to it. And of course, this is very obvious for an IDE, but in editors, you need to do these, work with these tricks, sort of. But it's achievable quite easily. And for typos and misspellings that you do frequently, And there's a feature in Vim called abbreviations that basically just maps one word to another. So if you have a hard time spelling chainer and write chainer all the time, you create a mapping. And similar for any other word, you can create a dictionary on your, for yourself. And you also have auto-completion. Oops, sorry. So for example, if you want to add another one, you usually type receive like this. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but this is actually wrong. And it should be spelled like, oh. I already fixed this already. That was a very bad preparation for the presentation. Sorry. But that's basically how it works. Maybe we can skip that. And yes, we have auto-completion as any other IDE in Vim also. And this is built-in. I actually didn't use this for quite a long while, but yeah, you should definitely be using it. You can also see where the references are coming from. And these are maybe slightly more interesting topics. Is that you can do in Vim is that you can record a sequence of keystrokes, because Vim has a notion of registers, which is basically just chunks of text in memory that Vim keeps track of. And you can register any string into that register, and you can, for example, replay your recordings. So say, for example, that you want to delete the comment at the end of these lines. You could, of course, just move to the end and delete. That's completely fine, but you don't want to do that for all lines. So what you do is that you start recording into a register. I'm going to start recording into register Q, starting from this position. And I'm going to find the hash, jump to there, and go back 2 steps, then delete the rest of the line, and then jump back to the starting position, and finish my recording. So now that recording is registered into register Q, then I can replay it like this, and do the same action. And it takes time to force yourself to use these recordings, but it could be quite convenient. And if you're worried that you're going to do something wrong in the middle of the recording, you can always edit the recording afterwards, because the register is just a piece of text. So you can paste it in and edit it and then paste it back. Like this. So this is the data that's stored in the register. And in Vim, you can also define your own functions using a script language called VimScript, which is Vim's own language that you can get used to, but you can also write in Python or Lua. I think Emacs you'd use Lisp. So I wrote a simple function that I could demonstrate here. It's not that difficult, but each time I write a model in Chainer or create a new repository, I always end up writing these parser object. And this is a lot of boilerplate code, and it's very repetitive. And you could, of course, just copy your previous ones and then editing these arguments, but that's still quite inefficient. So I created a function that just takes, let me just demonstrate, maybe that's easier. So you declare all your variables on a line like this that you want to have in your parser. Let's say, don't think you ever write something like that, but just for demonstration purpose. And you call this arg parse command that I defined. So what it does is that it parses that line and generates a parser. And hopefully this runs. And these are like really small details, but it improves your everyday work. So while having all these tools at disposal, you still need to make it a habit, again, as this was the third step. And my concrete tips here is that you should make it easy to make it easy. I think this is quite easy to forget. So in the case of Vim, you have a Vim RC file that stores all the Vim configurations, and for example, all these function definitions as well. So I map these Vim configuration files to, in this case, leader VV, which is space VV. So I can press it in normal mode in Vim to just open up my Vim RC file, make any edit I want, and then I can reload it as easily. So that more or less concludes my presentation. But the final words are that, first of all, don't overdo it. You need to learn it by muscle memory, so practice one feature at a time and iteratively improve your editing. And also what's important, it is still not to know your limitations of your editor, because unless you're using Emacs, you don't want to do everything in the editor. So, for example, do you want to build your project from Vim? Should that be run in a separate thread? Or do you want to manage version control from there? And these are some considerations that you need to take into account. And again, invest in learning to edit efficiently. And sometimes it's very easy to get stuck to just pumping out the text that you have in your mind because your buffer is usually full. But it's usually worth taking your time to learn new techniques to, in the long term, improve your efficiency. Yes, thank you very much. Glad to take any questions.
So I thought there was actually a program that would record your keystrokes and then would tell you how to make it more effective. Have you ever seen that? Like, I thought there was one for Vim or something that would...
I didn't know about it. Is that for Vim?
I can't remember something about it, but I never got around to implementing it, but I thought it would be great to actually...
So it tells you where you're...
delegate that to the editor to be like, could have done this, or like a suggestion kind of thing.
How to change your command.
Yeah.
Maybe they're using machine learning for that. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.